Hello everyone, Mexi here. Welcome back to another Polytopia match review. So this one will always be special to me because it's the first 3v3 that I've ever done and the first 3v3 that everyone in this match has ever done. So this happened a couple of days ago. I've just been a bit busy. Haven't had a lot of time to come back to it and done a bit of a VOD review. So let's introduce you to the teams. So on Team Spilt Milk, we have myself playing Imo. Over here we have wafflenbutter playing Oumaji. And over here we have the Xin Xi colored Cymanti played by Sylvee. And on the other team, we have Kyrby, or lol0lOl8, playing Polaris. We have DrPlasma playing the default Cymanti. And playing the Venga Xin Xi is DrPlasma again. Yep, they couldn't really find a third person, so we just had two DrPlasmas on two different devices, it still counts, I say. So what we wanted is, I knew that I wanted one person to not spawn next to, and that was Cymanti. If I didn't spawn next to DrPlasma's Cymanti, I would be fine. And, you'll find out how this goes later. So this game was kind of crazy, and there was different points where I thought either we absolutely were going to lose and we were absolutely going to win. So it was really exciting. So let's get right into it. So in terms of my spawn, I had a couple animals. In fact, they're not shown here. For some reason, I have to press play. So there we go. I knew that hunting was the play. I wanted to go for the Philosophy Rush opening. So my idea was that we realized, because we were all in VC for the entire game, this took place over the course of I think 4 hours or something like that. So we knew that Waffle and I were close to each other, and I saw this Xin Xi trees tile, so we knew that we could potentially rush down the second DrPlasma pretty soon. So I start sending my warrior exploring this way, and I got Waffle to send their rider to explore like this greater area. And Sylvie told us that she spawned up in the north, so that meant that Polaris was probably somewhere like over here or over here. We didn't really know, but we just start exploring. So at first it's just pretty standard. Kyrby goes down that way, Sylvie goes down that way and places some spores down. And then I reveal this mountain tile that's a Cymanti mountain, and I go, uh-oh. This is bad, because I know that our Cymanti is at the top. So I immediately start preparing for imminent doom. But I, still keep moving. We'll still vibing. And at this whole starting section is just pretty standard for everyone. Like, we got Cymanti getting the spores down. We've got Polaris just trying to put ice on everything. We've got Oumaji just spreading throughout and taking space. But then Sylvie finds Polaris up here, and our idea is that it was looking that they spawned at the top alone in a separate continent. So we thought if she could take out Kyrby immediately, then it would put us in a really good spot. So that was a bit of a plan. And then Waffle's plan was to expand and develop economy using organization, perhaps roads. And then down here, I find DrPlasma's shaman, and I know that warrior is going to get converted. But I think, I can still sneak in a bit of damage. Still, it was really disheartening, and I knew that I was probably going to lose this game, because Cymanti on turn 2, they're probably not far off from hexapods. So, yeah, it was quite rough, but again, Sylvie pressuring Polaris immediately was pretty much the only thing we had going for us. But yeah, Kyrby starts going the wrong way though. I don't think he was aware that Cymanti was up there. So then here comes Waffle, and their Explorer actually goes the wrong way. We wanted to reveal me and possibly Xin Xi so that they could get stars and we could get a bit more information. But instead, they got information on this village and this ruin, and this village over here would particularly become a key city later in the game to break a siege that I would say won us the game. Meanwhile, here's DrPlasma down here, get riding and converts my warrior. So this is pretty much lost for me, but Now I'm thinking Waffle needs to get down here and help me out, and I'm going to try and hold them off for as long as I can. That was before we knew that Xin Xi was literally right here. We were actually considering that they might have been way over here. So we thought we had more time than we actually did. Then, Sylvee's just exploring. So is Xin Xi. And then this is around the time where we see the Xin Xi warrior for the first time. And we're like, oh, they're probably right here. So the plan instead becomes to rush Xin Xi while Sylvee rushes Polaris before Cymanti can start becoming a huge threat. Something along those lines. So meanwhile, that's all that's happening. And then Waffle starts hitting these Xin Xi warriors, but I'm kind of struggling out here. Then Xin Xi finds their second village, so they're going to be expanding pretty soon as well. Polaris also found their second village, but they also know that they're in enemy Cymanti territory, so this probably would have been very scary for Kirby. And I'm not sure about the sleds. I think riders might have been a better option, just because sleds are just entirely useless on land, and it shows later on when they start fighting each other. So Xin Xi discovers that they're kind of stuck in this space. We didn't know about that yet, but yeah, there's just water in these tiles. So they kind of get stuck there, and that might have been another big factor as to why we managed to survive for so long and eventually win the game. But yep, Cymanti's just doing Cymanti things, especially against Imo. Like, can I just say that Imo is like, Cymanti just screws them over so bad, especially in their early game. So it sucks that the person I happened to spawn next to was the enemy Cymanti. Meanwhile, Sylvee's just also doing Cymanti things, boosting hexapods and stuff. And meanwhile, I'm just kind of vibing, trying to get this village, but I don't realize, I can't see any of this. For all I know that their capital's like way over here, this is just like their second city. I really didn't know. But I also get an explorer, and it also goes the wrong way, but at least it reveals Xin Xi and a bit of waffle, so I get some nice stars to make up for that. So I start getting riding. So then, yeah, Waffle's just trying to protect me from Xin Xi for now. And it's not until turn 6 that things start to get pretty bloody interesting. But Cymanti City is starting to get scarily big for early game. And Sylvee here is just trying to take care of Polaris. So she gets her first siege on the capital. So if this city was maybe one tile further, this could have been really bad for Kirby, and he could have potentially been eliminated straight away as well. But he's holding up right still. And then over here, this is when Xin Xi discovers that they're trapped, and they get vision on some of Oumaji's territory. And a city wall. This makes our plan to take out Xin Xi early on and focus on Cymanti together really annoying, because city walls just so rough to take care of, especially when there's warriors or riders inside. But me, I'm just exploring, and I managed to kill the shaman, which probably became key for later on in the game. At this point, unless there was a centipede, I knew I was pretty dead. I still can't see the city, so I could only see these surrounding tiles. But there's another village down here that I also couldn't see. And then Waffle's just protecting me for now. But Kirby over here manages to break the siege. So now turn 6 is when things start to get a bit interesting. So Cymanti over here, DrPlasma, he gets his first centipede. And I gotta say, a turn 6 centipede right next to Imo hurts my soul. But yeah, I discovered it a turn afterwards, and Waffle and I were realizing that Sylvee's gonna have to beat Polaris pretty quickly and then come down to help if we want a chance to win. So my plan is to just be a pain for the last 2 turns that I have, and then wait for Waffle to stall for as long as humanly possible for Sylvee's reinforcements to come down. And then the next couple of turns is just my utter downfall, because I'll explain in a second. So yeah, Xin Xi is just expanding a little bit more, but that's all the space they have. Meanwhile, I just debate whether or not leaving my rider here, because again, I didn't know that there was a centipede on the way, and then I start whacking this Xin Xi warrior before he can start heading down and whacking me as well. Kyrby over here, yep, just starting to move some sleds down and training more. Again, I don't think this was such a good idea because their movement is so limited on land and they don't have dash ability or escape when they're on land. So this is quite tough. But then Waffle over here, that starts to get a pretty big economic turn. Just upgrading like a bunch of things. Gets another Explorer, and this one thankfully has no choice but to go the right way. So they reveal all of Xin Xi's stuff, and this is when we realize that they're just stuck in this tiny space, which is going to be huge for us as well. So there we go. I'll just let this play out a little bit. But yeah, they're doing a pretty good job at defending me. And then boom, I see this and I'm like, okay, hey guys, I'm gonna be eliminated in the next couple of turns, so good luck. And then Xin Xi gets fishing. My theory was that DrPlasma was considering either buying bridges or sailing, so that well, I guess so he can start getting boats and perhaps exploring over here, helping out Kyrby, or just getting scouts to deal with the onslaught of Oumaji riders and stuff. So meanwhile, down here, I just start attacking that centipede, and then Kyrby starts sending his sleds fully into hostile territory to try and take out Cymanti early on, or at least, you know, make them fight a little bit. Again, sleds probably weren't the best idea in my opinion, but then he gets another one. And Waffle down here is just doing their best. It helps out a lot. The upgrade, they're starting to get a pretty big... I'm pretty sure they have the best economy currently. So 9 stars. Cymanti has... let's see. 8 stars. So... small difference, but still. And then Cymanti over here also has a pretty good economy. But then I think that I have a couple of turns because the centipede's going to have to capture this village and then come this way. But DrPlasma actually decides to just send it straight and rush me, which is a good idea because, you know, you just want to get rid of Imo as quickly as possible. And they get climbing. Over here, Sylvie is just growing her cities and starting to attack Polaris. And then Xin Xi is just, you know, trying their best. Then they upgrade that city down there. Another warrior. And then I'm just doing what I can. It's really not much anymore. Like, I'm dead in a couple of turns, no matter what. It'd just be like that. But I'm just trying my best. So then this is when Waffle gets their first giant. So I tell them to send it to pressure Xin Xi as much as possible to take their capital, maybe trap them in the tiny little space. And then Cymanti down here, when their turn comes, they're going to meet Xin Xi and send a peace treaty to them, and also siege my capital. So they're doing pretty well early game. Then over here, Sylvie's just doing Cymanti things. Close to getting her first centipede as well. But yeah, just a preparation turn. Then Xin Xi actually gets Smithery, trains a swordsman, which makes our job even harder. So for my last turn, I take out this Xin Xi warrior. This is a very funny image. And then just, you know, that's it. Peace out. So that's all I got to do in this game. But after I got eliminated, I stayed to coach a little bit. Meanwhile, Kyrby up here is just using sleds in, and then gets another one as well. I mean, strength in numbers, but he doesn't know about like the shaman and the boosted hexapods and or anything. And also, sleds are just so expensive to train as well. Waffle here gets their second giant, I'm pretty sure. Yep, and then just decides to heal their army to see what Xin Xi is gonna do. Then I get eliminated by Green Cymanti down here. And then this is when they get diplomacy, but we didn't know that yet at the time. So we tried our best, because at this point we were starting to believe we were going to lose this game. Yes, we had two giants, but Cymanti, I didn't know how strong they were at the time. They looked to be very, very strong. So, pretty scary stuff. Up here, Sylvie gets her first centipede, I believe. Or maybe that might be next turn. Yeah, that's definitely next turn. So then Xin Xi starts sending swordsmen down here. Polaris actually gets a decent amount of damage over here, because there's 3 sleds around this area, and then a 4 health warrior defending this city over here. Waffle starts sending their army straight into Xin Xi. So we have a plan to potentially siege this city in the next couple of turns by moving the giant here and then sieging with the giant, eventually wiping out Xin Xi for the rest of the game. So we were looking pretty strong there. But yeah, Cymanti decides to give us a bit of breathing room. I'm not sure what they were doing by turning around this centipede like this. It's a bit odd and unexpected, but hell yeah. And then now this is when Sylvie gets her first centipede, and things aren't looking too good for Polaris anymore. Like the uselessness of sleds is really biting them in the butt anymore at this point. So yeah, good turn from Sylvie here. Has a pretty strong, is pretty set to take this city pretty soon as well. So things looking up for us a little bit. Still, we are down 1 person at the time at this moment. Yeah, not a lot that Xin Xi can do here. And then I'm assuming that Polaris sends the Mooney like to keep exploring, maybe to find more villages to potentially help this city over here. But I'm interested to see what could have happened if like there was maybe a couple more Moonies over here freezing these units. But I don't know. Polaris and dry lands versus Cymanti, or dry land versus Cymanti doesn't seem like a good combo. Then Waffle just cleans up a bit of Xin Xi's units. And we look pretty poised to take this city next turn. So here is where Cymanti finally gets that village. Starts working on hydrology to start building this, because there's a tiny passage over here that Waffle could abuse with like catapults and ranged units. So what Cymanti wants to do is build algae here so that they have a bit more room to work with. There's really not much Polaris can do. So they're looking pretty weak at this point in the game. Not their fault. I mean, they did spawn in a dry land section right next to enemy Cymanti, similar to me at the beginning of the game. And then finally, we get this siege that they can't break, and there's no more Xin Xi warriors. So Xin Xi's looking pretty much out of the game at this point. And then I'm pretty sure they get catapults here. Yep, a catapult to start dealing with this little onslaught of Cymanti as well. So Cymanti get, and here's something that interesting that happens. Okay, so Waffle could only see up to here, but because I died, I could still see the game, and because I had eyes on this city, I quickly checked in and saw that there was a cloak. So I warned Waffle about it, and it was not like cheating or anything, because I, still was in the game, technically, but I did tell Waffle, hey, we might need to deal with this. And then Sylvie's just doing a really good job with these hexapods, because she has 2 veteran hexapods at this point, and they're not like super powerful, but they're pretty damn good and can't hurt. Then Xin Xi can't really do much other than place down a swordsman here, I think. Yep. Polaris with the Star Ruin, but they don't look like they can break that siege. So at this point, Xin Xi isn't really much of a problem anymore, but with hindsight, we should have looked to fully eliminate them before deciding not to worry about them anymore. I mean, it didn't end up having too much of an effect. And then Waffle's just preparing. So, DrPlasma hanging on to this 3-segment centipede. I'm not sure if that was a good idea, and eventually does lead to a pretty insane night chain. I'm not sure if there was the centipede or a different one, but there was a centipede night chain that was really good from Waffle. So the cloak starts moving, and we forgot about it for a couple of turns until, like, just before it was about to hit. They get their second centipede. And then Sylvie does take the Polaris capital, starts sending a Raichi down as well. Then I look at these cities and I'm like, why don't you get mining? All of your cities are 1 or 2 population away from another level. So she'll get mining pretty soon as well. So yep, the catapult doing its job, and then Waffle does get knights. Because we see that this is looking very chainable. The 10 health head, the 10, 10, and 5 health segments with no defense boosts as well. But the catapult does bite the dust, and we get a siege. Which ends up being fine. Waffle and Sylvie made a bit of a... I guess, no, they didn't really make a misplay. So Sylvie comes in and unsieges the city, but because they hadn't met before, quote-unquote, they couldn't send each other a peace treaty to avoid the siege. But that's fine, because in turn 16, when Waffle meets Sylvie, they get about 11 stars, due to how high Sylvie's score was. So that's pretty good. So then she gets another centipede. The roads was actually really good as well. So Sylvie up here doing a very good job with the 2 veteran hexapods, and then the shaman protected, boosting Raichis and sending them down here. So her plan was it would take a lot of Raichis, but she wanted to build an algae bridge so that she could start sending land units down here to help, which we very desperately needed. So very, very strong position from Sylvie up here. Like Kyrby having 2 units and 1 city really didn't look too strong at all. So we weren't worried about them. Okay, now I want to talk about this. So the night chain that we were talking about is the knight was going to come down here, even though yes, it would split the centipede down here, but then they were going to kill the swordsman, then this one, hit this one, and then promote the knight. They did make a misplay and promoted it too early, but it didn't really matter. And also it sucks that we had to spend so many resources just to get this centipede head down to a health where it could get chained again. But if this was a 15 health knight, we would not have... Xin Xi was literally dead. There was nothing they could have done. So, misplay that did extend the game a bit unnecessarily, but at least it didn't change the result. So that's pretty good. Can't really complain. Then Cymanti down here. See what they do. They move the cloak over here, and this is when we remembered, oh yeah, there was a cloak. And Waffle very cleverly pointed out, Cymanti didn't really need to build this algae down here, which is where the cloak was previously, if I'm not wrong. Yep, so they moved it over there. So from our perspective, it seemed like they just decided to build that and spend 5 stars for no reason. So we assumed that that's where the cloak went, and now it was somewhere over here. So our plan was to move this 3 health rider to this tile to see if it was any over here, because none of these, it was definitely not in these tiles because this guy would have seen it, and it wasn't here because this guy would have seen it. We deduced that it had to have been around here, any of these 3. So next turn we play a bit of Minesweeper and manage to get the cloak out, which was another great play. So Kyrby actually manages to get a siege there. But over here, there's the cloak reveal. So Waffle moves their rider here. Reveals the little eye icon. So there's a 50-50, or technically this tile could have been it as well, and this one too. But we really didn't think it was that DrPlasma would have moved it from here to here. So we thought that it was a big chance that it was in this tile. So they try to move this rider there, and boom. So we managed to take that out. And then that's not a worry anymore. We get a couple knights. And because the centipede is slow and the hexapods can't reach, we got a bit of a turn to breathe. But unfortunately, they do get a siege here. And a Dumux. And then Sylvie gets this water city that becomes crucial to helping Oumaji later on. So yeah, this was very costly. The only way to build algae is outside of their territories by blowing up Raichis. So, but eventually this is going to pay off. And then we managed to hold off that little attack. And then Cymanti takes the city, which they will keep for the majority of the rest of the game. So just looking very strong overall. That was a bit more of an economic turn. But Kyrby manages to capture this city again. At this point, it seemed like he just kept managing to escape, but not really like do damage to Sylvie. So that was good for us anyway. It didn't matter where he was running to on the map, because that meant that our empire was growing. So that was pretty good. And then this explorer doesn't really go anywhere. We do get a siege on this city, and we think that this is the end of Xin Xi. We were going to be wrong, though. And then over here at the end of their turn, we debated whether or not to train something back here. And I said, train a rider, just in case. And this rider, this little guy, this gentleman, became crucial to winning the game, literally in the next turn. And I think that's really funny. Anyway. So they break the siege and get a siege of their own. So we see this and we think, we've lost the game. There's nothing we can do. But then I pulled up the Polytopia damage calculator and we think, there's a way. There's one way to win this. It's going to take every resource we have, but we can unsiege this. And you're about to see the massive play in a second. Meanwhile, up here, Sylvie just continuing her dominance. Just so good. Just getting more centipedes. This is really good. Okay, so I want to showcase this in all its glory. So we start getting a bit more roads over here to move these riders down. So we whack the Dumux a couple of times. And 12 is just barely for a full health knight to kill. Okay? So we get that, and then the segment. And then this would not have been enough. So I had them whack the centipede head with the low health one before the full health one. I'm pretty sure that was intentional. But then that gets the centipede head to 5 health, just enough for this guy to get rotated down, come in, and take the last swing. So we managed to break that siege, and now Cymanti was really not in that threatening of a position anymore. So in the group chat that we had, DrPlasma got really annoyed that we managed to break that siege because of the one rider up here. So the algae bridge is not completed. Sylvie just does more Cymanti things. So at this point, it's pretty clear that we're looking very, very, very strong. Like the entire top half of the map is pretty much Sylvie's at this point. Kyrby has one city and isn't really helping anyone at the moment. Xin Xi is down to one city and they're not doing anything either. So it's basically Waffle and a bit of Sylvie versus the one member of the other team that's actually pulling in any of the weight. But that was because these guys were just trapped. Couldn't really do anything. So Waffle's kind of holding on by a thread of warriors and riders because breaking last turn siege was just such a big investment. But because of the huge blow, all the Cymanti manages to get is a tiny little siege over here, which Sylvie helps break. A bit suboptimal movement here with the centipede and with the hexapods, but that's fine. And then border growth helps with the algae bridge. And then Xin Xi finally gets enough money to put a defender on a boat and upgrade to a scout. It took them how many turns since we took their city? Not sure, but way too many. And Polaris does get a catapult though, so they might be able to do a little bit, but at this point it is way too late. Like, look at all this. And then we realize that Cymanti's spendings on Dumuxes are really hurting them. Because all they can do is just put 2 Dumuxes. They can't upgrade any cities without sacrificing a Dumux. So all they can do is 1 Dumux, 2 hexapods. And that isn't really going to help them. It's like Dumuxes are really good units if you have infinite stars, essentially. So then Sylvie manages to get an embassy and I think her first cloak. If I'm not wrong. No, not quite, but she does get diplomacy. So by turn 23, we do tell them that they have pretty much lost the game and they should probably resign, but they decide to play for a little longer because they wanted a bit more gameplay. But even they knew that it was probably over. So at this point, it was kind of just finishing the job. We knew we had won, but they could still turn it around over here, kind of. Not really at all, actually. But they thought they could. Polaris does get a Gami, but at this point, like I said before, it's just kind of not really doing anything. Like 1 Gami versus 3 centipedes, this is just, it's not going to win. And then Sylvie just pulls so much weight up here with her centipede. We decide to split this one so that this one could become pretty much useless and die. And this one wouldn't be like so up here and so threatening. And then over here, the catapult pulse puts a bit of work. And now that this city is safely guarded by Sylvie's centipede, we decide to get another catapult. It dies, but, you know, it's still a bit of a distraction at least. Breaking the segment was pretty smart, I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't expect them to do that. So here's Sylvie's cloak, and it starts moving down here to take this village. And there's just so many centipedes. There's so many. this centipede is kind of struggling, so Sylvie will have to be sending stuff over here to help. But at this point, we decide that Dumuxes they're not going to stop sending Dumuxes. So we decide Waffle gets Swordsman, because they're way harder to deal with. Like, they're not going to die in one hit like Riders do and Knights do. And just a little rider here to help. So the catapult does die, but the Swordsman comes away unscathed. And then look at this. There's so many Dumuxes attacking this one giant. Like, what health was he at before? 31. My god. And then we finally get this cloak hit. And this city's pretty much done. Like, they're gonna have to spend so much stuff trying to get rid of that revolution. Revolution? Revolt. Or something like that. And then she gets, like, second shaman, another cloak, a Faichi for some reason. Yeah, Xin Xi, like, bro thinks they're on the team at this point. They're not really doing anything. Like, who cares? You shot 2 arrows at a 20 health centipede. Then we prepare to kill the centipede next turn so that it's not, like, a big deal anymore. They move it over here, but it doesn't matter. It's nowhere it can run. The Sylvie gets the siege. Turn 26. We are about at the point where the game ends, but not quite. Like, we kept trying to convince them to resign because it was 2 a.m. and we wanted to go to bed. I mean, they live in a different part of the world though, so they didn't have that same problem. But we were like, we EP, we want to go to bed. Can we end the game? But they still wanted more gameplay. So we decided to give them hell, and what follows is their downfall. Like, it's crazy to see how threatening Cymanti used to be to how threatening they ended up being at the end of the game. It's really awesome seeing that every time. And then she just starts getting Dumuxes and Exodus for some reason. Like, she's just kind of trolling at that point. And the Gami won't last much longer. Yep, the cloak. Next cloak hits. And then we have the Cymanti battle sled. But yeah, this Gami won't last much longer. I'm pretty sure he dies literally next turn, and that's when Kyrby resigns. Because at this point, I guess he is just stopping Sylvie from advancing in this area. But it's just really not much at this point. So yeah, now we feel confident enough to bring all of the catapults forward. And then I really like this from Sylvie. So she could not have sieged this city. I'm pretty sure 3 daggers, 1 on borderline death isn't going to do it. So she instead moves over here because I show her that there's a city down here and that there's a hexapod in it. So at some point she moves over here and takes the city. The Gami is also dead at this point. So complete domination from Team Spilt Milk. And then Kyrby, like, moves one thing. And then this is when they all resigned. So that was the end of the game. It was pretty awesome. In considering that I died on turn 10. And that not only did we manage to win anyway, but that it ended up being so good. The clutch plays, the night chains, the cloak reveals. It was really, like, crucial that Sylvie won the battle up here. Because if she hadn't, like, if this conflict lasted for longer, or if it wasn't as dominant, Waffle would have been dead, probably, at some point. Like, the mission will stall for as long as humanly possible to get Sylvie down here to help out. And she did, and we won. So even though we didn't get rid of Xin Xi entirely, or Polaris, none of that ended up mattering in the end. So yeah, this was a really good match. Congratulations and thanks to everyone who played for participating. There is going to be more of me, Waffle and Butter, and Sylvie playing in 3v3s together. So I look forward to those future games. For now, thank you very much. And I'll see you some other time. See ya.